Have you ever walked into a room full of people and instantly felt out of place, like you don't quite belong? Maybe it's not just about being shy or introverted. Maybe it's something deeper. Maybe you've always felt a little different, as if there's something unique about your journey that others just don't seem to understand. If you've ever had that feeling, you're in the right place. You see, there's a reason why chosen ones often feel this way. It's not because you're antisocial or because there's something wrong with you. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You've been set apart for a special purpose, and with that calling comes a different way of experiencing the world. But with that difference often comes a sense of isolation, of not fitting in with the crowd. In today's video, we're going to explore why that is. We'll dive deep into the psychological, spiritual, and even social reasons why chosen ones often find it difficult to be around a lot of people. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand why you feel the way you do and why it's okay. So, if you've ever found yourself wondering why you're not like everyone else, if you've ever felt that deep longing for something more meaningful, or if you've struggled to find your place in a world that doesn't always make sense, stay with me. You're not alone in this, and today we're going to uncover the truth behind why chosen ones are often set apart from the crowd. This is about more than just fitting in. It's about embracing who you truly are and understanding the unique path God has laid out for you. Let's talk about something that might really resonate: how sensitive you are to the world around you. If you're someone who feels overwhelmed by loud noises, bright lights, or even just the energy of a crowded room, it's not just in your head. This sensitivity is real, and it's something that many chosen ones experience. You see, being a chosen one often means you're more attuned to the spiritual realm. Your senses are heightened, not just physically, but spiritually as well. This can make everyday environments feel intense, even overwhelming at times. Imagine walking into a busy store or attending a large gathering. What might seem like normal background noise to others can feel like a constant distracting buzz to you. It's like trying to have a deep conversation with God while a loud TV is blaring in the background. It's no wonder you might feel the need to step away and find some peace and quiet. This sensitivity isn't a weakness. It's actually a sign of your spiritual awareness. Your spirit is finely tuned to pick up on things others might miss, and that can be a beautiful gift. But it also means you might need more space to recharge and connect with God without all the noise. It's okay to need that time alone. It's part of what makes your journey as a chosen one unique and meaningful. So, if you've ever wondered why you're so sensitive to the world around you, know that it's part of how God made you. And it's something to be embraced, not something to feel bad about. Now, let's dive into something that might describe you perfectly: how you recharge your energy. If you're someone who feels more at peace when you're alone rather than in a group, you're likely an introvert. But it's more than just being introverted. It's about finding strength and clarity in those quiet moments of reflection. As a chosen one, you're on a unique spiritual path. This journey often requires deep thinking, prayer, and personal reflection. It's in those quiet times that you connect most deeply with God and gain insight into your purpose. Large groups and busy environments can sometimes pull you away from that connection, making it harder to hear God's voice or feel His presence. Think about how Jesus would often withdraw from the crowds to pray alone. He needed that time to connect with His Father, to recharge, and to reflect on His mission. You're no different. Your need for solitude isn't about avoiding people. It's about making sure you're spiritually grounded and aligned with God's will for your life. When you take time to be alone, it's not just about resting. It's about creating space to reflect on your journey, to pray, and to listen to what God is saying to you. It's in these moments that you find the strength and direction you need to continue walking your unique path. So, if you ever feel the urge to step away from the crowd and spend time alone, know that this is not only okay, it's necessary. It's how you stay connected to your true self and your calling as a chosen one. Let's take a moment to look at what the Bible says about finding time alone with God. One powerful example comes from the life of Jesus. Even though he was constantly surrounded by people teaching, healing, and ministering, Jesus often withdrew to quiet places to pray. Luke 5, verse 16 tells us, "But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." This wasn't just a one-time thing. Jesus made it a regular practice to step away from the crowds, to be alone with his Father. He understood that in order to stay spiritually strong and focused on his mission, he needed that time of solitude. It was in those quiet moments that he found strength, guidance, and the peace to continue his work. As a chosen one, you might feel the same need to withdraw from the busyness of life, to spend time in prayer and reflection. This isn't about being antisocial or avoiding others. It's about following the example of Jesus. It's about recognizing that your spiritual journey requires moments of quiet, where you can hear God's voice clearly and recharge your spirit. So, whenever you feel the need to step back and spend time alone, remember that you're following in the footsteps of Jesus. It's a powerful and necessary part of your spiritual journey. Now, let's talk about something really important, the special connection you have with God. As a chosen one, your relationship with God is at the center of your life. It's not just something you think about on Sundays or during certain times of the day. It's something that's constantly with you, guiding your thoughts, your decisions, and your path. But here's the thing, maintaining that deep, divine connection often requires a level of focus and quiet that you just can't find in the middle of a crowd. Have you ever noticed that when you're in a busy or noisy environment, it's harder to hear that still, small voice inside you? That's because your spirit needs a calm, peaceful space to truly connect with God. When you take the time to step away from the noise and distractions of the world, you're not just resting, you're making space for God to speak to you. It's in these quiet moments that you can hear his voice more clearly, feel his presence more deeply, and understand his will for your life more fully. This isn't about isolating yourself from others. It's about prioritizing your relationship with God above everything else. You might find that large social gatherings or busy environments make it difficult to maintain that connection. That's okay. It's a sign that your spirit is tuned in to something higher, something more meaningful than the day-to-day hustle. Your need for solitude isn't a sign of weakness or social awkwardness. It's a reflection of your strong desire to stay close to God. Think of these quiet times as a way to recharge your spiritual batteries. Just like your phone needs to be plugged in regularly to stay powered, your spirit needs to connect with God regularly to stay strong and vibrant. By taking time alone, you're ensuring that you're always in tune with His voice and His direction for your life. So, embrace those moments of solitude. Use them to deepen your divine connection, to listen, to reflect, and to align your life with God's purpose for you. It's one of the most important things you can do as a chosen one. Let's talk about the unique challenges that come with being a chosen one, especially when it comes to leadership. If you've ever felt the weight of responsibility on your shoulders, you're not alone. Many chosen ones are called to lead in some way, whether it's guiding others spiritually, offering support and wisdom, or simply being a beacon of light in a dark world. But with that leadership comes a burden that can feel heavy at times. Being a leader, especially in a spiritual sense, is not just about making decisions or being in charge. It's about carrying the weight of others' expectations, their needs, and sometimes even their struggles. You might find that people look to you for guidance, advice, or comfort because they sense something different in you, something deeper and more connected to God. While this is a great honor, it can also be exhausting. Just think about Moses in the Bible. He was chosen by God to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, a monumental task that came with tremendous responsibility. But even Moses needed time alone with God to recharge and seek guidance. The burden of leadership was so heavy that he often retreated to a quiet place to pray and connect with God, seeking the strength and wisdom he needed to lead his people. As a chosen one, you might find that large groups or social settings drain you, especially when you're constantly in a position of giving, whether it's emotional support, spiritual guidance, or just being a listening ear. It's in these moments that you need to step back, take a breath, and allow yourself time to recharge. Remember, even Jesus took time away from the crowds to pray and be alone with his Father. It's okay to acknowledge that leadership comes with burdens. It's okay to feel tired or overwhelmed at times. What's important is that you recognize the need to care for yourself spiritually so you can continue to fulfill your role as a leader. By taking time to be alone with God, you're not only recharging yourself, but you're also ensuring that you can continue to lead with wisdom, strength, and compassion. So, don't be afraid to take a step back when you need to. Your leadership is valuable, and caring for yourself is a vital part of being the leader God has called you to be. Let's dive into a powerful biblical example that really speaks to the experience of being a chosen one, Moses. Moses was chosen by God to lead the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt and into the Promised Land. This was no small task. He had to guide an entire nation through some of the most challenging circumstances imaginable, all while carrying the immense weight of their expectations, complaints, and fears. But what's really telling about Moses' journey is how he managed this overwhelming responsibility. Even though he was surrounded by people almost constantly, Moses knew he needed to step away from the crowd to connect with God. The Bible tells us that Moses would often leave the camp and go to a place called the Tent of Meeting, where he would speak with God face to face. It was in these quiet, solitary moments that Moses found the guidance and strength he needed to lead his people. Moses' example shows us that even the greatest leaders need time alone with God. Leadership, especially in a spiritual sense, can be incredibly draining. It's easy to get caught up in the needs of others, but Moses reminds us that we must also take care of our own spiritual well-being. By withdrawing to a quiet place, Moses was able to recharge and receive the wisdom he needed to continue his journey. As a chosen one, you might feel a similar pull to step away from the crowd, to find your own tent of meeting where you can connect with God. This isn't just a nice to have, it's essential. Just like Moses, you need those moments of solitude to hear God's voice clearly, to receive his guidance, and to regain the strength you need to fulfill your purpose. So, when you feel the need to be alone, remember Moses. Remember that even the strongest leaders need time with God, away from the noise, to stay on the path he's laid out for them. It's in those moments that you're not just recharging, you're aligning yourself with God's plan, just like Moses did. Let's talk about something that's probably very close to your heart, the desire for deep, meaningful connections. As a chosen one, you might find it difficult to connect with others on a superficial level. While some people can easily make small talk or feel comfortable in large social settings, you might be someone who craves something more, a connection that goes beyond the surface, something that touches the soul. This desire for meaningful connections is part of your spiritual makeup. You're not interested in just passing the time or engaging in conversations that don't matter. Instead, you long for relationships that are deep, authentic. You want to connect with people who understand your journey, who can walk alongside you in your faith, and who share your values and beliefs. But here's the challenge. These kinds of connections are rare. In a world that often values quantity over quality, finding people who resonate with your spirit can feel like searching for a needle in a haystack. This can lead to feelings of loneliness or frustration, especially when you're surrounded by people who just don't get you. However, this quest for meaningful connections isn't something to be discouraged by. It's something to embrace. Your desire for deeper relationships is a reflection of your spiritual depth. It's a sign that you're not willing to settle for less than what truly nourishes your soul. And while it might mean that you have fewer friends or spend more time alone, the connections you do make are likely to be profound and life-changing. Think about Jesus and his disciples. Out of all the people he could have chosen, Jesus selected a small group of 12 to be his closest companions. These relationships were deep, built on trust, shared experiences, and the common purpose. Jesus didn't seek out the biggest crowd. He sought out those who would truly understand and support his mission. As a chosen one, you're on a similar quest. It's not about having a large circle of acquaintances, but about finding those few who truly connect with your spirit. So, don't be discouraged if it takes time to find your people. The connections you're looking for are worth the wait, and when you find them, they'll bring a richness and depth to your life that goes far beyond the ordinary. Let's take a moment to talk about something that many chosen ones experience, but don't always discuss: feeling misunderstood and isolated. If you've ever felt like people just don't get you, or like you're walking a different path than everyone else, you're not alone. This is a common experience for those who are on a unique spiritual journey. As a chosen one, your perspective on life is often different from those around you. You might see things more deeply, feel things more intensely, and prioritize your spiritual growth over things that others might consider more important. Because of this, it's easy for people to misunderstand you. They might not see the world the way you do, or they might not understand why you make certain choices. This can lead to feelings of isolation, as if you're living in a different reality than those around you. But here's the truth. Being misunderstood doesn't mean you're wrong. It doesn't mean you need to change who you are to fit in. In fact, the very things that set you apart are likely the things that make you special and uniquely equipped for your calling. Jesus himself was often misunderstood by those around him. People didn't always grasp his teachings or his mission, and he often faced rejection and isolation because of it. But Jesus knew his purpose, and he stayed true to it, even when it meant walking a lonely path. You might find that your journey as a chosen one leads you down a similar road. It's not always easy to be different, and it can be painful when others don't understand you. But remember, you're not walking this path alone. God understands you completely, even when others don't. He knows your heart, your intentions, and your struggles. It's okay to feel isolated at times, but don't let that isolation make you doubt your path. Instead, let it be a reminder that you're walking a unique journey, one that not everyone is meant to understand. Embrace who you are and the path you're on, knowing that even if others don't get it, God does. And that's what truly matters. Let's explore what the Bible has to say about walking a path that not everyone understands. As a chosen one, you're likely familiar with the feeling of being set apart, of walking a road that's different from most. This can sometimes feel isolating, but the Bible offers us encouragement and perspective. One verse that really speaks to this experience is Matthew 7, verse 13 to 14, where Jesus says, "Enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate, and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." This verse reminds us that the path to true life, the life that God has called you to, isn't the one that everyone takes. It's a narrow path, often walked by few, but it's the one that leads to the deepest fulfillment and purpose. As a chosen one, you're on that narrow path. It's a road that requires courage, faith, and sometimes solitude. It's not always easy, and it's not always understood by others, but it's the path that leads to the life God has planned for you. The fact that it's a lonely road at times doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Remember, throughout the Bible, we see examples of those who walked this narrow path. Prophets, disciples, and even Jesus himself often stood apart from the crowd, following God's direction, even when it led them into difficult or lonely places. But their obedience to God's call was always met with his faithfulness and reward. So when you feel isolated or misunderstood, take comfort in knowing that you're in good company. You're walking the same path that many faithful servants of God have walked before you. It's a path that, though narrow, leads to a life filled with God's presence and his purpose for you. And that's something worth holding on to, even when the journey feels tough. Let's talk about the beauty and importance of solitude. For many chosen ones, solitude isn't just something they prefer, it's something they need. It's in those quiet, alone moments that you can truly connect with God, reflect on your journey, and find the peace that the world often can't offer. Sometimes we think of being alone as a negative thing. Society often tells us that we should be constantly surrounded by people, always busy, always engaged. But the truth is, solitude is a gift. It's a time when you can step away from the noise and the distractions and just be still. In that stillness, you can hear God's voice more clearly. You can feel his presence more deeply. It's in these moments that your soul is refreshed and your spirit is renewed. Think about Jesus, who often withdrew to lonely places to pray. He knew the importance of solitude. It wasn't just about escaping the crowds. It was about making space for his relationship with God. In those quiet moments, Jesus found strength, guidance, and the peace he needed to fulfill his mission. If Jesus needed solitude, how much more do we? When you embrace solitude, you're not just taking a break, you're entering into a sacred space where you and God can meet. It's a time to reflect, to pray, to listen. It's in these moments that God often speaks the loudest, not through noise, but through the quiet whisper to your heart. So, don't be afraid of solitude. Embrace it. See it as a necessary part of your spiritual journey. It's in these quiet times that you'll find the clarity, peace, and strength to continue on the path God has set before you. Remember, solitude isn't loneliness. It's a sacred opportunity to be with God in a way that's deep and personal. While solitude is important, it's also true that we're not meant to walk this journey entirely alone. As a chosen one, you might find it difficult to connect with just anyone. You're looking for something deeper, something real. That's why finding the right community is so important. The right community isn't just about being around people. It's about being around the right people. These are the ones who truly understand your journey, who share your values, and who encourage you in your walk with God. They're the ones who can support you when times are tough and celebrate with you when God does something amazing in your life. But finding this kind of community can take time, and that's okay. It's better to wait and find a few people who really get you than to surround yourself with a crowd that doesn't. Remember, Jesus chose 12 disciples to be his close companions. He didn't look for the biggest group. He looked for those who were ready to walk the path with him, to share in his mission, and to grow in their faith together. So, where do you find this kind of community? It might be in a small church group, an online community, or even just one or two close friends who share your faith and values. The key is to seek out relationships that are built on mutual respect, shared faith, and a genuine desire to grow closer to God together. And don't be discouraged if it takes time. The right community is worth the wait. When you find it, you'll know. There's something powerful about walking your journey with others who truly understand you. It brings a sense of belonging, encouragement, and strength that can make all the difference. So, keep your heart open. Pray for God to lead you to the right people. And when you find them, cherish those relationships. They are a gift from God, meant to help you on your journey as a chosen one. Let's take a moment to draw strength from the Word of God. Life as a chosen one isn't always easy. There are times when the road feels long, the burdens feel heavy, and the sense of being misunderstood or alone can weigh on your heart. But in these moments, it's important to remember that God is with you every step of the way. Proverbs 18:24 says, "A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother." This verse reminds us that it's not about having a large circle of acquaintances. It's about finding those few relationships that truly matter, those who stick by you through thick and thin. And most importantly, it reminds us that God Himself is that friend who is always closer than a brother. No matter how isolated you might feel at times, you are never truly alone. God is always with you, guiding you, comforting you, and providing the strength you need. His presence is constant, and His love is unwavering. So, hold on to that truth. When the journey feels tough, lean into God's presence. Let Him be your refuge, your strength, and your ever-present help in times of need. Remember, you are chosen by Him, and He will never leave you nor forsake you. With God by your side, you can face any challenge that comes your way. As we come to the end of this video, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've discussed. We started by exploring why chosen ones often feel the need to step away from large groups, and we looked at the unique challenges that come with being on a spiritual journey like yours. From sensitivity to stimuli, to the deep need for reflection, to the burden of leadership, we've seen that these are not weaknesses. They're part of what makes your path special and meaningful. We also talked about the desire for meaningful connections and how it's okay to seek out deeper relationships, even if that means having fewer people in your life. And we've looked at how being misunderstood can be painful, but it's also a sign that you're walking a unique and important path. Most importantly, we've grounded everything in biblical truth, reminding ourselves that even Jesus sought solitude, that God understands our need for quiet reflection, and that He's always with us, no matter how lonely the road might feel. Now, I want to encourage you to take what we've talked about today and reflect on it in your own life. Think about the ways you can embrace your need for solitude, deepen your relationship with God, and seek out those meaningful connections that truly nourish your soul. If you found comfort or insight in this video, I invite you to share it with someone else who might need to hear these words. We're all on this journey together, and sometimes sharing what we've learned can make a huge difference in someone else's life. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to this channel. We're building a community here where chosen ones can find support, encouragement, and understanding. By subscribing, you'll be joining a group of like-minded individuals who are also walking this unique path. Before we close, I want to leave you with one final thought. Being a chosen one isn't always easy, but it's a blessing. It means you've been set apart for a special purpose, and even when the journey is tough, you're never alone. God is with you every step of the way, guiding you and loving you through it all. Remember the words of Isaiah 41 verse 10, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Take these words to heart and let them be your source of comfort and strength. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I hope you found encouragement and insight. Until next time, keep walking your path with faith, knowing that you are chosen, loved, and never alone.